All right. Sorry for the delay. We're back though here on the Politics podcast, and today we're talking with Joe Ramirez. We got a couple of cool topics for us today, and really happy to bring Joe on. Um, you there with me, Joe?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sweet. All
Set
right.
up. Set up. I like it.
Yeah, that's a lot better than before for sure.
Yeah. Oh, damn. This is pretty awesome. How's everything?
Good. It's good. Just bugs everywhere, but it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Awesome. It's great to do this again.
Yeah, it's been a while, but glad that we're able to link up finally because really a lot going on in business and marketing in general, and so I'm really excited to be able to talk about it. Um, Two of the biggest topics that I've been kind of looking at lately, and I know that you have some opinions on this stuff too, but um, first one I want to jump into though was the topic of, I guess it's part of market segmentation because it's really has a lot to do with target demographics and like appealing to your target consumer. And it's been kind of a trend lately that I've been noticing personally, where a lot of people are noticing it, where companies are not necessarily sticking with their target demographic and
Mm-hmm.
really appealing to their I guess ideal consumer, and they're losing these huge amounts of market share because of it. Um, so I wanted to get your thoughts on it too, because for me, one of the, and obviously the number one thing that's going to come to everybody's mind is Bud Light, because obviously Bud Light is one of the um, Bud Light's one of the biggest things that um, one of the biggest brands that we're seeing being impacted by these types of marketing campaigns, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. It hits kind of hard for me, dude, because when I was in college, a lot of the projects that I did and a lot of the studies that I referenced were about Bud Light or Budweiser, and so throughout college, I had this specific connection, I feel like, to Budweiser, and I really like their brand. I like their story. I like the backstory of Budweiser, and so it kind of hurts me to see like so much controversy about the brand itself. But at the same time, I totally understand it because it's not something that I would do as a CMO or as any part of a marketing team. I wouldn't, recommend it. But again, for me, it's kind of hits hard. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I understand it. What do you think about it? What do you think about the whole?
Well, I'm guessing that you're referencing when Bud Light had that collaboration with I don't know their name.
Dylan? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't have anything. So fair warning, I don't have anything against like the LGBT or any community or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Neither do I.
But I see what you're feeling, and I think part of it is primarily brand, the brand that Bud Light has, and I think brand is very important when it comes to a business because what it is it's a promise to its consumers that this is who we are, and this is the type of relationship that we're gonna have. And for years, from what I can remember, Bud Light has always kind of been the working class, the blue collar, from 9 to 5 or even 7 to 5 workers who are in like labor jobs. And the first thing that they want to do when they get off is they want to open a Bud Light, want to drink, kick back, and just chill out. I mean, my stepfather or my father-in-law, he works hard in the morning, and he always likes to He drinks Bud Light. He always likes to open a Bud Light, and he'll watch boxing. That's his thing. Same thing with my dad. He watches football. He drinks Bud Light. Um, and I think this isn't really a an attack on the LGBT community. I think what a lot of consumers don't like is the fact that you're promised something, you're promised a product, but then all of a sudden that product does like a 360 on you, and now you're just like you don't have any relationship with it. Like you feel violated, like someone just broke, like they broke something important to you. It was like a relationship was a bridge. And I mean, yeah, Bud Light, they sponsored sports teams, and I think when it comes to target demographics and what they did with that collaboration, I think it's not, like I said, it's not LGBTQ related. I think it's more, like you said, it's a whole different demographic that they're targeting, and it just like came out of nowhere. Um and I definitely think Bud Light went wrong. Like, I definitely think they went the wrong way with how they approached it, because I mean it's not it's not rare for brands to kind of grow into different demographics. It's pretty normal. But there's a process that you need to follow when you're doing that. And I think what Bud Light, kind of should have done was, if they wanted to get into that demographic, then they could have hosted events, like personal events, not like something that they did live or they posted on social media, but something like, they could have went to, I don't, like San Francisco, where there's a huge presence of LGBT community there, and they could, but like could have just say, hey, we see that you're doing this event, we'd like to sponsor you. Just do, start off small and take baby steps to
Yeah.
where it's not like a shock value to consumers, but sooner or later it grows and it's like, oh yeah, like they're they're growing their brand, they're growing into different, like, I understand, but instead of like a punch in the face, and it's like, what the heck are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
it's
And I mean, it's interesting that you bring that up too, because I think that's first and foremost. I think that needs to be addressed for anybody that's in business or marketing that's listening, or also has like the same questions about what's going on here. I think it's really really important to understand that it has little to do. Now, I won't say it has nothing to do, but it has very little to do with the fact that that they were supporting um, this. I think she's like let's say like a TikToker or
mm-hmm,
something. But it's not even so much that she's trans or whatnot. I think the biggest thing with it that's most important is the target. They know what their target demographic is. They know what their target demographic's going to like. And even, I mean, Bud Light, Budweiser, any of these brands, you can see that they've had a past presence in that demographic. It's not like that this is just something new that they did,
mm-hmm,
but I think it's the way that they did it. And then I think it's also a lot of it has to do, and I can't remember her name, but I'm pretty sure she was an executive for, I think she was a CMO for Bud Light, or at least for that branch. Um, and she did a podcast interview afterwards. And I think a lot of what she was saying was kind of shedding light into, like, first of all, the decisions that they're making, like on who to engage with. Um, but even more so, though, she brought up the fact that the opinion, I would say, that Bud Light is a declining brand. So it's in the, so if you know about business and about like marketing and everything, business life cycle, it goes through different parts of the life cycle, and then it ends up declining, and she's saying it's in the decline, which I don't necessarily believe. Like, I understand what she's saying, and I think a lot of people misinterpreted it because they don't understand what she was talking about. But they're basically making it seem like, hey, nobody likes Bud Light, nobody's drinking Bud Light. We need to target a younger demographic. Which, again, that's another point why a lot of conservatives are kind of upset about it, was because of Dylan Mulvaney's actually her target demographics. But but the thing with it is, though, that she's making these inferences from information that she's really kind of she missed the mark on it. She's saying, oh, Bud Light, it's always had this kind of image of being like a fratty, quote unquote, is what she said, fratty brand. But I mean, that's what people liked about it. You know what I mean? Like, I, again, studied it heavily in college, and Bud Light has always had this like really witty, like funny, like sense of humor, like type of commercials, type of style, kind of kick back. And it's fun. They have a lot of really good, fun commercials, and they engage with their targets, and everybody loves it. But since this, it just kind of just doesn't matter. They came out with a really good, I thought, commercial recently. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like the grunting commercial where everybody's like grunting, like all the guys are like sitting down and they're grunting and stuff, and it's funny, and it's something that you would expect to see from Bud Light. But the problem is that they've damaged their brand so bad that I don't even know where you go from that. Like, what do you think, like, in just in your opinion, if you're in the position of Bud Light, where do you go from there when your brand is significantly impacted by the decisions that were made? You're losing a ton of market share, losing a ton of money and market value, losing placement. There's factories that are closing down now. They're reporting that there's areas where Bud Light is selling at less of a cost than water. Like, where do you go from that?
Well, there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch base, and so do you know the collaborator's name? What her name was?
Dylan Mulvaney, the TikToker.
Yeah, Mulvaney.
Yeah, Mulvaney.
Okay. Well, so when I saw that video, my immediate thought was she was dressed as Aubrey Hepburn.
Yeah.
Anything who associates Audrey Hepburn is, Tiffany and Co. and champagne or wine and kind of highlight. So I think they kind of, either way, they did kind of miss it. Dylan Mulvaney, yeah. And the other thing, due to the decline of Bud Light, was, so I think it was in 2008, IBEV purchased Anheuser-Busch, and IBEV is a German company, I believe, or it's a European company. And I think that is part of a reason Bud Light's been on a decline, only because a European company is not going to understand the target market of who Bud Light was. And from what I understood, kind of researching the topic, was that they have for years have kind of been missing the target with Bud Light, especially not kind of building that communication with its current customers, and it's kind of led the way for other beers such as Miller High Life is one of the things that come to mind, is what's kind of taking a lot of the young drinkers, or like younger ages, because the thing that I remember about Miller High Life is their commercials kind of having that party, that little get together with a bunch of like early 20s, mid 20 people, and they're just all kind of enjoying each other's company. so I definitely think the fact that Anheuser-Busch sold the company to another company that doesn't understand anything about its target consumers is also kind of what provided a downfall. And to recuperate, like to try and gain back traction, I definitely think IBEV needs to actually kind of figure out, have a little bit more interest involved in who the target audience is, instead of just kind of spitballing and seeing what hits. Um, I definitely think that they need to start building that relationship again. And I mean, even kind of maybe like I said, like if they want to kind of get into different target audiences, and like you don't have to like have a collab and then all of a sudden deliver some kind of shock value where you don't know who is going to enter or like how people are going to react to it. But instead, kind of sponsor private events with different demographics, see which one sticks, and see the impressions that, you know, of what that target has about Bud Light. I mean, like they could have had that private event in San Francisco where it's like a huge LGBT community event. And, some people might have like, they, like you said, they thought it was like a frat boy drink, but you know what? It's actually, it's not a bad drink, like then you start building an audience from there. So yeah, I definitely think Bud Light or Anheuser-Busch or even the company that owns them now, I think it was IBEV, need to start actually focusing on just that, building that relationship again, figuring out who, having a clear view
Yeah.
of their audience.
Yeah, no, yeah. AB and Bev is the combination of Anheuser-Busch, and then it's a Brazilian company and it's mixed
Mm-hmm.
with a Belgium company, and so they had a merger prior to picking up Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah.
So it's a large company with a lot of different brands that are under its name.
Yeah, and
And
I think that's definitely kind of the issue when you get to like large conglomerate
mm-hmm.
Businesses. When that business starts to, like, when you have a large business, it's hard to like focus on the small details of a company, because now you have so much other things that you need to worry about, so many other brands that you need to worry about, and then products, and I think it becomes really complicated.
Yeah, it can. I mean, because you have different brands that you're having to juggle, and each brand might have their own
Yeah.
target demographics. Well, they do. It's not an if. It's that they do for a fact have a specific target demographic for themselves. So it's hard because you have different areas. I mean, and it's not just like they're a local brewing company. So they have a global footprint that they have to contend with. And
Yeah.
so what's right in one area may not be right in another. And I mean, it's hard to balance, but
Yeah.
I mean, if it were me though, I mean, you have this huge brand that's been, at the top of the list for years and years and years. And up until this point, they were still the leader in what I call piss beers, but,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's not something, they're not known for their taste. It's not
Yeah.
something where they're like, oh, this is the best tasting beer ever, and that's why it's number one. It's just it's that staple.
Mm-hmm.
It's that staple brand, and it's had a very long history in America as an American beer, and that's what that brand was, and that's what it meant to people. And then it took a lot away from it for the things that happened with it. But personally, I mean, if it were me, I would strongly consider, is this time for us to retire the brand at this point and just, focus on something new and just start from scratch? Because I just don't know how
Yeah.
they're going to bounce back from it to at the point that they're at right now. And it's not just Bud Light. I mean, I use Bud Light as an example because everybody knows, what's going on with it, and because it's something that I studied personally in school. for, and not just like one project. I did many, 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 many projects and papers on it. A lot of research into the company, research
Yeah.
into the industry in general, and so it's easy for me to speak to it. But I mean, you have the same type of deal now that's kind of snowballing with like brands like Target. Um, Budweiser probably got hit the worst because it got it on both ends of the spectrum. And same thing with Target too. It looks like they're kind of getting it too, but not as bad as Bud Light. Um, and I did a poll because I was curious, and not a fairly it's not a very large sample size, but with then because I just started yesterday, but with the sample size that I got, 100% of the people in the poll said that businesses should just stay out of controversial issues.
Hmm.
So it was basically a 3-question poll. Um, do you think that businesses should be more engaged or more vocal on these issues? Do you think they should be less vocal, or do you think they just shouldn't even have a say? And most people, or not most people, all people that responded to it, and again, poll size is limited, but the sample size is limited, but 100% said that they should just stay out of it. And I'm inclined to agree. Like, I think that if it's a controversial issue, if it's something that people are just getting tired of things getting shoved in their face, whether
Hmm.
you agree with it or you don't agree with it. I think it's just a point where it's like, dude, you have a brand, you have a job with that brand. Like you said, you have a promise to your consumer base with that brand. You have a um, fiduciary duty to the stakeholders in the company to be able to you know do the right thing that's going to make money. Like, that's your business, that's your job in business, is to make money. And I just think that, like, it's just getting to a point where it's just so hard for people to focus on business, and they have to have something. They have to have a say in something, and I just don't think it's the right move. Um, I don't see the benefit. I don't see the payout from the younger like generations that they're trying to target. I mean, it may pan out in the long run. We don't know because we haven't been there yet. We don't see what that's going to look like, and we don't see where that swing is going to be at. But I, I don't know. It makes me nervous for these companies because I just don't. I just see a lot of these companies just kind of dissipating and going a different way, or new brands taking their places.
Yeah. And I mean, that's kind of what has to happen too. I mean, sooner or later, like a lot of the stores that we grew up with, just they don't exist anymore. It's just because, you know,
It's true.
the economic, like, yeah, the layout of the economy is just completely different. But like, I definitely agree, only to the point where I think it's necessary if your company has to deal with what's going on. And like consumer based products, I don't think, depending on what it is, don't shouldn't really have or shouldn't really use a they shouldn't use politics or anything like any kind of controversial issues to kind of gain or to capitalize on. Um
Yeah.
Things like that I have an issue with. Like if a company's trying to capitalize on a situation, then yeah, I definitely think
Hmm.
it's definitely harmful. But for, let's say, like nonprofits, where nonprofits usually are issue based
Yeah.
organizations, then yeah, I
And
understand
that's
if they feel,
understandable.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a relate like it's something that's related to what their organization is about.
Right.
But yeah, I definitely think businesses need to be careful when trying to piggyback on a trend, especially controversial trend,
Mhm.
because it could definitely do severe damage. And I think a lot of people are already kind of exhausted on the whole politics, and now it's kind of feeling like you're beating a dead horse with a stick. There's
Yeah.
nothing that you can get out of it now. Everyone's just exhausted. Um, so yeah, I definitely think a lot of businesses are making that mistake. or at
Yeah,
least
no, I agree with you. I mean, like you said, I mean, if it's target based, so if you have a company where that issue is either your brand is focused around the issue, like you're mentioning, and you're right. You know, with a lot of nonprofits, you see this where the actual brand of the company of the organization is based off of that certain issue, and so it makes sense to not only align yourself with that issue but also with issues that kind of cascade from that. So
hmm
that makes sense, and I agree with you 100%. Like if that's what your brand is, if your brand is meant to to write on that issue, or to honor that issue, or to focus on that issue, bring light to that issue, then then yeah, that's perfectly fine. But when you have, like you said, a consumer based product where you're selling either a product or a service, and I think Kevin O'Leary actually touched on this too, and I was so happy when he said it because I feel like it's just so basic that everybody should know this, but nobody was saying it. Um, you have just a specific amount of jobs to do. You either have a brand to sell, you have a product to sell, you have a service to sell, um, and your goal is to make money. You know,
hmm
that's what it is. It's very simple, but you know, you can't. As soon as you decide to pick a side, you know, you lose a significant amount of people that don't agree with you, especially when it's a controversial issue on a hyper polarized population like we are now. You know, when you say, hey, I think this, then you're losing 50% of the country. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And potentially your consumer base, depending on what your consumer base is. Like in Bud Light's case, I mean, they lost a very significant portion of their consumer base because the majority of their base, you know, aligned a certain way on an issue. You know what I mean?
hmm
So, so
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think it's important for businesses to to remember that as a general rule, like when they're deciding to go on these um, crusades, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But another thing I wanted to talk about too, and of course, you know, if you have anything else to touch on before we move on, definitely do that. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was AI in marketing too,
hmm
and that's something that scares me.
Yeah.
To be
Why is
honest,
that?
like it's just because I don't know. Like I feel like it could go two different ways, dude. Like it's either it can go in the direction of where it makes it helps to simplify things for marketers, um, and it helps us get more done, you know. So you can you could do multiple things in a shorter amount of time because you're utilizing that technology. um, on the other hand, though, it scares me because that technology is readily available and it's not very regulated. So basically anybody can do it. You can have, you know, people that don't understand marketing have AI, you know, complete commands that normally you'd have to get a professional to do. So I feel like it takes away um, some of that consumer base for us as marketers. But at the same time, like I don't know if it's something where like we just have to get better at utilizing it, or if we or if it is something that's, you know, uh, some people say like it's going to take their jobs. I don't think that that's necessarily true because you need that human element in marketing, I feel like. But I do think that it's scary in the sense that it significantly undermines like the what marketers do, especially people that do it for a living, like yourself. You know.
hmm Um, AI. So, in all honesty, I've been using AI for like about 3 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
For what? Like for copyright or?
Copyright, but primarily it's there to help me get started. To like so
Okay.
copywriting, website copy, um, Facebook copy, any kind of anything that I have to write. Um, most of the time I don't know how to start. So So I do find it difficult, but that's kind of where AI has kind of helped me. And I always tell everyone, especially when they're first getting into AI, or they're or discussing on a topic, is that the one thing that you shouldn't do is have it or rely on it to where you enter a prompt, it spits everything out, you copy paste it, because
Yeah.
that's just the wrong way of doing it. It's just kind of sloppy. Um, I definitely think AI is a tool that could greatly benefit marketers, copywriters. Uh, it could do some wonderful things because it just helps improve your creative process, the creative flow that goes into writing copy. And of course, you need to revise that copy and put kind of the human touch into it, because ultimately AI is not human. It doesn't know, it can't build that relationship or the communication. It can't communicate the feelings. It could be there to
Yeah.
spit out whatever it scrubs from the internet, and um and puts it on your screen, but it doesn't care about like providing the feeling to the individual that's going to read it. Um, but AI, we're far from artificial intelligence that's like, so right now we kind of have a dummy intelligence. I think that's kind of what they phrased it. It's artificial intelligence, but it's not really artificial. It's just dummy. It's basically scraping everything that it has collected from the internet and then creating sentences out of it. We're far, far, like, I don't know, maybe a decade from actual full awareness, intelligence. So yeah, we're far off from that. Um, but as for taking people's jobs, I definitely think there's going to be specific things that are going to be automated away. Um, and I definitely think that there are going to be jobs that are going to be automated away with a combination of artificial intelligence or robotics. With those two, yeah, I definitely think, you know, maybe waiters, waitresses, even servers, maybe accountants, only actually maybe the basics of what accounting has to deal with will go away, but not necessarily the accountants. There's other aspects of the business that they need to have hands
Mhm.
on experience with. So yeah, I definitely think there's going to be some jobs, but the other thing that we need to look for is what kind of jobs are going to be created through artificial intelligence and robotics. Um, and that's kind of how civilizations grow anyway. Is, you know, when you could kind of take away specific things of human life, and then you could kind of put human innovation into different things. It kind of frees up that, it frees up the innovation, the human innovation, into thinking about other aspects of everyday life that we could actually, do, you know. Um it's normal, it was the buggy, or what was it, the horse carriage and the car, that a lot of people actually didn't have a lot of confidence in an automobile. They thought, like, you can move faster with a horse and a carriage than you can with a car. And you could definitely carry more weight with a horse and a carriage than you can with a car. But sooner or later, through innovation, the horse and the carriage, ultimately it got axed. It's no more. Now we have car. From the car, we got trucks. From trucks, we got semi trucks. From semi trucks, we got bulldozers and heavy construction. I definitely think it's in nature for this to happen sooner or later. I definitely think it's uncharted territory, because at the rate that we're that it's evolving is actually what is scary to most people. I mean, it wasn't that long ago before, the internet came to existence. We're part of that generation where there was no internet, and all of a sudden, like, as grown-ups, internet has like completely changed our lives. It's it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, it's a good call out because I think people don't realize it as that, right? Where it's like you have this um, evolution of technology, and so what's scary to us now may not be scary to us, in 20 years. But I think it's more so it's not so much that I'm scared of like AI, like you know nuking us or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But what it does worry me about is just like that, like you said, the rate at which it's increasing, but also the the things that kind of stem from it, or the issues that might stem from it, that we're not really it, I guess it's just not regulated to the point where it's like, how do we address certain concerns, or at least that I don't know what they're addressed as. Like, if you have, let's take copyright for example. So if if everybody is asking, AI to copyright things, like if let's say like 100 people ask for the same prompts on it, and like you said, it's scraping the internet, it's coming up with ideas for this. What do you think is the what do you think the likelihood is, let's say, that you're starting to run into issues with plagiarism, or things not necessarily for you, right? Because you're,
Mhm.
like you mentioned, you're not using it as like a copy and paste feature. You're actually, using it to kind of start the conversation, or kind of spark that brain power, which, I've done that for different things that I've done, like stories and stuff, where not with AI necessarily, but with like those generators. Like, I don't know if you've ever used like a generator app where it,
Mhm.
just gives you random stuff. But sometimes I'll use that if I'm trying to think of a character or something, or I'm trying to think of ideas for something for a project, and I'll use that as like a starter. But not everybody's gonna do that, though. You know what I mean? And it's the lazy way out. And I don't think anybody should do this. Just for the record. But if anybody, if multiple people are asking AI technologies for the same thing, and obviously there's a lot of different databases and stuff out there, but when you're asking that, what's the likelihood that you are going to start seeing the issues where it's like plagiarism, um, or just things just not seeming very original, and how long before we think that that's okay, where we're okay with that.
Yeah. Well, you're onto something, because that's exactly why one of the reasons why I tell people never just to copy paste what ChatGPT tells you onto any copy, because you have to run it through some kind of plagiarism scanner, in which this case I
Mhm.
usually use Grammarly, because they have a built-in function to help you trace like whether certain things are plagiarized. And I've definitely ran into cases where, like, maybe I think the highest I've ever gotten was maybe 10% of um what my AI tool gave me was plagiarized, but it was regarding a completely different subject. Like, I'm talking about search engine optimization, or how local businesses could benefit from SEO.
Mhm.
And the plagiarized copy was geared towards um what was it? Starting a business. Um Not locally, it's just in general, just starting a business. But
Yeah.
that's also, yeah, but that's why I say you never copy paste it, because I mean, for one, you need to make sure that nothing is plagiarized. So you need to kind of go in, reword everything. But the important thing is you need to make sure that copy sounds like how you're speaking, um, your tone of voice that people want to read. Because I mean, it's hard to notice, but people do recognize whether something was generated by AI and whether something was written by a human. And I think one of the biggest things that, or the biggest differences, is the kind of the emotional touch that human cop or that copy was written by humans provides. Stories about growing up, or stories about experiences, and the experiences that you put to kind of illustrate the point in why you're writing a blog article. ChatGPT doesn't do that, or neither does any kind of AI copy. It just, if you tell it to create the top 10 rules for SEO, it's literally just going to tell you rule one, this, rule two, this. Um, but nowhere is it going to give you the experience of how, like, how I came up with the 10 rules of SEO. How I basically had to go from experience where, this didn't work, that's why you should stick with this, that's rule one. This didn't work and this did, which is why you need to stick with rule number two. I think that is the biggest difference between just someone using artificial intelligence and someone actually putting in the work to write something. And like I said, yeah, I use AI as a tool to write, but I always have to go and revise it to make sure that it's exactly what it is that I'm trying to say. The other issues that I've ran in with AI that you actually know that someone just copy pasted is some AI tools tend to repeat. The patterns tend to repeat throughout the entire blog article. I've ran into situations like, I'm a huge follower on Medium. I love reading Medium articles, and there are some occasions where I did find copy or a Medium article that honestly felt like it was just copy pasted. And the way that I know is because, spending so much time producing content through AI and then having to go back and revise it, is I know that one of the biggest issues with AI is that it repeats content throughout the article most of the time. So some of the articles that I ran into Medium, it repeats the same thing over and over again, and it's a turn off. It's just like I go back and I look for a different article. So yeah, copyright is, I think sooner or later it is going to become an issue, but that's exactly why AI should not really be like your main, what is it? Your main source of providing content.
Yeah, like your well, yeah, your go-to, your main source, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I haven't used it enough to really know, and I think that's one of the things. It's kind of one of those things where it's like ignorance, right? Where you just you don't know much about it, so you're kind of like off put by it. Um, because I mean, just with you talking about, I mean, I can definitely see a lot of different ways where it could be useful in marketing or in business or pretty much in anything really. I mean, there's a lot of different places where that would work, and that's just one topic of marketing when we're looking at copyright. Um, it also, I don't know. It's just the, like you said, the rate at which it's moving. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
crazy. It's
Yeah.
kind of over.
And I know the writer strike, one of the number overwhelming issues with the writing strike going on with writers who do shows and movies. That's one of the biggest issues that they're facing, is that they don't want AI to be used in the Writers Guild, because I mean they feel threatened. It's something that, I think one of the biggest fears was if a script is written and during movie production someone needs to change the script, then they could just use artificial intelligence to pick up, like, to manipulate the script to where it's cohesive and you don't need to pay a writer to go back and revise it.
Yeah.
And I know that's one of the biggest fears that a lot of the Writers Guild have. And the truth is it sucks, but unfortunately, artificial intelligence is here to stay. It's something that's not going to go away. And I definitely think it's something that you need to really kind of find the positive side in the positive side of using it and not focusing too much on what like it's going to take or it's I'm not going to get paid as the amount I'm worth for this, and then they're not going to pay me extra for revising or anything like that. And I know it's not really the case of paying, you know, of showcasing what a writer's worth, but it's it's something that's not going to go away, and I think it's something that they can't really run away from, because sooner or later there's going to be a lot of independent movie companies that are going to have their own writers, and definitely those writers are going to use artificial intelligence, and it's something that they're just going to be able to create a movie script in half the time. That way it's more money for production, for movie production, and they'll finish a movie at a quicker pace than what you would do if someone were to actually like sit down, collaborate with others, write the script, revise the script, write it. It literally gets rid of so much. But yeah, it's kind of it's a tough subject to touch on nowadays.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, I can't even say that I've devoted enough time to it in general. But I think a lot of people, especially with the things like the strikes and things that are going on, I think it is something where people are genuinely, I don't want to say concerned about it. I'm concerned about it, but I think they're just mostly intrigued by it and
Mhm.
wanting to know more about it. And, if it's something that, at least I worry about, if it's something that could be implemented or if it's something that um, should be combated, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, and I understand people's fears. I mean, I've used art AI tools for so long. I already know the shortcomings that AI has,
Right.
especially when it comes to writing content. I know it does it. I know to people it feels like it's like the ultimate tool that's going to change I mean, it'll change your business or specific aspects of your business, but it's not like
It's not
the
all powerful.
yeah, it's not the all powerful tool
It's
that people
the
are
genie.
making it come to be. It's tough to use, especially like when you're first getting into it, because like I said, like when I was first getting into it, it was overwhelming because you have a tool that's spitting out so much information about a blog post, but at the same time, like I've mentioned before, some of the things that it produces is repeats itself over and over again. And
Yeah.
so now that's when you kind of realize, well, like, okay, so I can't like 100% rely on this tool, but that's why I've gotten into the habit of using it more as a starter or something to
Yeah.
create the framework of the blog post. And that way I could just go in, fill in the blanks, and I don't have to overthink everything. Everything is like produced for me. I just go in, I write what I need to write, and check my grammar because I'm horrible at grammar. But that's another thing that makes me human because it's the grammar on the blog posts on all my blog posts are not the best, but uh,
Well, I mean, I use
That's another
Grammarly
reason.
too, like
Yeah,
for my grammar,
that's another
but
reason why it's done by a
there's times
human.
where I do it
You know?
myself. You know?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that's how you know
Yeah,
a human made it is when it's grammatically incorrect.
yeah. But I like it that way sometimes.
Yeah, well, you got it because the other thing that I kind of ran with Grammarly too is that it kind of mutes my tone of voice of what I'm trying to write. So I like to keep the grammatic imperfections in blog posts and in copy. That way, it kind of does show people, okay, yeah, a human wrote this, and like not in a way where it's like it's faulty, but in a way where, oh yeah, we're speaking the same language here. I do the same. I have the same grammatical errors as this person, so it's cool. You know?
Yeah, it depends too, because I mean, if you think about it, it's um, there's times when I read something and I'm like when you get like spam messages and stuff, and like you're reading and you're like, okay, I'm like reading this with an accent at this point, so I know this isn't real. So
Yeah,
there's that kind of grammatical errors, and then there's like you said, like the ones that common people make mistakes on and stuff. Like I was writing on one of the polls that I was pushing out. I wrote Bud Light and I spelt it wrong, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna leave it because some people spell it that way and it'll probably get hits. But
yeah,
but
yeah, and
anyway,
it's actually nice too because I think using AI has actually kind of helped me more, not in the sense where it helps me, but it's definitely helped me become a better writer. Um, I think it's actually like now, unlike before, where I would, in a sense, rely on artificial intelligence to help me create content. Now I kind of use it as more of an assistant if I'm struggling to make sense of what I'm trying to say or to articulate what I'm trying to say. But for the most part, I kind of already know what kind of content it's going to write about. But I think it's also helped me to become a better writer to where I actually don't even like have to rely too much on artificial intelligence to help me create like an entire blog post. Like I said, it just gives me like a framework, like the headers, the heading, subheading, what topics I need to cover to make sure that I'm covering everything that I want to cover. My biggest issue when I write blog posts is I want it to be as detailed as possible. And sometimes that causes me to basically write an entire novel, which really sucks. But it, definitely use artificial to help me kind of scale back what I need to cover in a specific article without having to stray too far from what I need to say, and it just helps me drive the points. You know.
sorry, I got muted. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And honestly, thank you for breaking it down like that, because as being somebody that actually uses it, I think it means a lot more, not just to myself, but to anybody else that's watching or listening, because um, it is one of those things where like you've been using it for 3 years, but for me, I've never used it, and so it's fresh for a lot of people, and it's something that's kind of fascinating, and so I think it is worth hearing it from somebody that actually has experience with it, and like you said, it's not this all-seeing eye
Yeah.
genie resolution, so
Yeah.
so it's cool. It's cool hearing that, but we're gonna have to get together and you're gonna have to show me some stuff on that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But we do have to wrap it up here just because it's running out of time on the podcast. But anything else that you wanted to mention about either one of the topics that we talked about tonight, or anything else that that's important that you think that we maybe missed real quick before we get cut off here? still with me, Joe?
Sorry, I was on
Oh,
mute.
you're good. I
No,
did
I
it too.
think
You're fine.
I definitely think we've covered, what we needed to. I mean, like I said, I could go on forever talking about these two subjects, but no, I think we've definitely, hopefully, we've provided enough value for listeners.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I mean, we could definitely jump into it and dive into it more deeply. Like we could do like a whole podcast on just one of the topics. You know what I mean? But I think they were both really, really good ones, and I wanted to kind of touch on both of them while we had you on,
Yeah.
because you're always really, really good source to go to on this. And I hope we get to continue doing podcasts, because I always love working with you on these and getting to talk to you.
Oh yeah, definitely. Same here. It's always
Thanks,
fun to
dude. I
be.
appreciate
It's always fun doing this.
Yeah, I agree. Cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap everything up, but I really, really appreciate you stopping in, and we'll talk to you later, man.
All right. Yeah, we'll see you. Have a good night.
All right, too. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Cool. And then real quick before we go, I just wanted to give you guys a huge shout out. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching. It's a brand new channel, so we haven't been able to really market it a whole lot yet. We're still kind of filling everything out, working with the software and figuring stuff out. So really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitch, follow us on YouTube. Subscribe on Patreon. Again, you don't have to be a Patreon subscriber to get into any of the polls or anything that we do. Trying to do that weekly, multiple times a week. And then if you do want to become a Patreon, help support us, you can get a discount on the merch shop, and you can also engage in some behind the scenes content as well, which is pretty cool. So be able to start up a community and hopefully get to talk about a lot of different topics, whether it be business or politics or anything like that. It doesn't matter where you align politically. Definitely welcome to jump on and talk about anything, and hopefully get a warm welcome from everybody, from myself specifically. So appreciate it if you would join and follow. Also, if you get the chance to check out our merch. Again, we do have a new merch shop, so we've been working on that. So you go to palotalks.shop is the URL for that one, or you can always just go to palotalks.com, and we have all the links and everything there for you as well. But again, thanks so much for taking the time to reach out and to check this podcast out. We appreciate it. Take care.